My hands are shaking as I watch my sister Isadora press her lips against Theodore's mouth at our family dinner table. The wine glass slips from my fingers. Crystal explodes against marble. Red liquid spreads like blood across white stone. They don't hear it. They're too lost in each other to notice me standing in the doorway, frozen like a statue made of shattered dreams. Theodore's hands are tangled in her dark hair, the same hands that braided mine just this morning. The same mouth that whispered "I love you" in my ear 3 hours ago is now devouring my sister like she's oxygen and he's drowning. The smell of my mother's lasagna turns my stomach. The sound of my father's laughter from the living room feels like mockery. Everything that was warm and safe and home suddenly feels like a stage set for my destruction. My engagement ring, grandmother's vintage emerald, catches the candlelight on Isadora's finger. My ring. The one Theodore claimed he lost while jogging last week. The lie burns through my chest like acid. She pulls back from the kiss and whispers, after her birthday, when she gets the trust fund, we can finally be together. Theodore nods, stroking her cheek with the same tenderness he used to show me. $2 million will solve everything. She'll never have to know it was always you. My knees buckle. The wall is the only thing keeping me upright. They've been planning this. Planning me. Planning my money, my future, my destruction. I want to scream. I want to run. I want to die. Instead, I back away silently, my bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. They think they're writing my ending. But they have no idea what I'm capable of when someone tries to steal my life. 3 months ago, I thought I was the luckiest woman in Manhattan. Every morning started the same way, Theodore's arms wrapped around me in our shared bed, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Upper East Side apartment. He'd kiss my forehead and whisper, "Good morning, beautiful," before padding to the kitchen to make my coffee exactly how I liked it, 2 sugars, splash of cream, cinnamon on top. "You spoil me," I'd tell him, and he'd smile that crooked smile that made my heart flutter even after 3 years together. "You deserve to be spoiled, Ophelia. You're going to be my wife." My wife. The words still gave me butterflies. My art gallery on 57th Street was my sanctuary. I'd unlock the doors each morning and breathe in the smell of fresh paint and possibility. The walls were covered with my own paintings, abstract pieces that captured emotions I couldn't put into words. Visitors would stop and stare, and sometimes, miraculously, they'd buy. "Your work speaks to something deep," Theodore would say, studying my latest piece. "You have a gift for showing pain and beauty at the same time." He understood my art in ways my family never did. While my parents saw painting as a nice hobby, Theodore saw it as my calling. Afternoons belonged to wedding planning with Isadora. We'd spend hours at bridal boutiques, her squealing over lace details and train lengths with more excitement than I felt myself sometimes. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," she'd gush, adjusting my veil in the mirror. "Theodore is so lucky. You both are." She'd always been my closest confidant. Growing up, we'd shared everything: midnight secrets, first heartbreaks, dreams about our future. When boys broke my heart in high school, Isadora would bring ice cream and let me cry on her shoulder. When I got into art school, she threw me a surprise party. "You're not just my sister," she'd tell me during our weekly coffee dates. "You're my best friend. I can't imagine my life without you in it." Those words felt like a warm blanket around my heart. Evenings were family dinners at our parents' brownstone. Dad would carve the roast while Mom fussed over place settings. Theodore would help with dishes, charming my mother with compliments about her cooking. Isadora would curl up next to me on the couch afterward, both of us scrolling through wedding Pinterest boards. "I can't wait for my turn," she'd sigh wistfully. "I want exactly what you have, the perfect guy, the perfect love story." But beneath all this perfection, something nagged at me. A whisper of insecurity I tried to ignore. Theodore had dated other women before me, sophisticated, accomplished women with trust funds and pedigrees. Sometimes I caught him staring at nothing, lost in thoughts he never shared. When I'd ask what he was thinking about, he'd flash that smile and change the subject. Just work stuff, darling. Nothing for you to worry about. My inheritance was always hanging in the background too, the $2 million I'd receive on my 25th birthday next month. Theodore never brought it up directly, but I noticed how his mood lifted whenever my parents mentioned it. How he'd get that calculating look in his eyes when discussing our future finances. "We'll be set for life," he'd murmur, holding me close. "No more struggling artist days for you." Sometimes I wondered if he loved me or the life I could give him. But then he'd surprise me with flowers or plan a romantic dinner, and I'd push those doubts away. I had everything I'd ever dreamed of: a man who cherished me, a sister who adored me, art that fulfilled me, and financial security waiting around the corner. I should have known that when life feels too perfect, it usually means someone is working very hard to make sure you don't see the cracks. The first crack appeared on a Tuesday morning in Theodore's jacket pocket. I was hanging up his blazer when I felt the crinkle of paper. Without thinking, I pulled out a receipt from Le Bernardin, our restaurant. The place where he'd proposed 6 months ago, where we celebrated every anniversary. Dinner for two. Last Thursday night. My stomach dropped. Last Thursday, Theodore had worked late. Emergency client meeting, he'd said. He'd come home at midnight smelling like cologne and apologies. "Sorry, darling. You know how these deals get." I stared at the receipt until the numbers blurred. $340 for 2 people. Wine. Dessert. The works. Maybe he'd taken a client there. Maybe it was innocent. But my hands were trembling as I called the restaurant. "Yes, Mr. Hayes dined with us Thursday evening," the hostess confirmed cheerfully. He was with a lovely brunette. They seemed very close. Holding hands across the table, sharing the chocolate soufflé. Such a sweet couple. Brunette. My blood turned to ice water. I'm blonde. Isadora has dark hair. Did they seem like they knew each other well? The question scraped my throat raw. Oh, absolutely. Very intimate. The way she laughed at everything he said, how he kept touching her hand. Young love is so beautiful, isn't it? The phone slipped from my fingers. Theodore had never taken me for chocolate soufflé. He always said he didn't like dessert. I spent the rest of the day replaying every conversation, every canceled date, every time he'd seemed distracted. His phone buzzing during dinner. The way he'd started showering as soon as he came home. How he'd stopped saying "I love you" first. When he walked through the door that evening, whistling, I studied his face like a detective. "How was your day, beautiful?" He kissed my cheek, and I smelled unfamiliar perfume. "Fine, I managed." "How was work?" "Boring client stuff." "You know how it is." "Lie." The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. That night, I lay awake listening to him breathe, wondering how long someone can live a double life before the truth suffocates them. Or before it suffocates you. The manila envelope arrived on a Friday morning like a death sentence wrapped in brown paper. I'd hired Marcus Rivera, a private investigator, 3 days after the restaurant receipt. Part of me hoped he'd find nothing. Part of me needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed me. My hands shook as I tore open the seal. Photos spilled across my kitchen counter like pieces of a shattered mirror. Theodore and Isadora walking hand in hand through Central Park. Her head on his shoulder outside a coffee shop I'd never seen before. His arms wrapped around her waist as they laughed at some private joke. Each image was a knife to my chest, but I kept looking. I had to see it all. Photo after photo of stolen moments. Theodore kissing Isadora's forehead in Washington Square Park. Isadora running her fingers through his hair on a bench I recognized from my childhood, the one where she used to comfort me after bad breakups. The irony tasted like blood in my mouth. Then I saw the hotel photos. Theodore and Isadora entering the Meridian Arms at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. The same Tuesday he'd told me he had back-to-back client meetings. They looked giddy, drunk on secrets and each other. My breath came in shallow gasps. The kitchen walls felt like they were closing in. But the final photograph stopped my heart completely. Isadora's left hand, extended toward a group of girlfriends at brunch. On her finger, grandmother's vintage emerald engagement ring. My ring. The one Theodore claimed he'd lost while jogging in Riverside Park. She was showing it off, her face radiant with joy that should have been mine. I dropped the photos and ran to the bathroom, dry heaving over the toilet until my ribs ached. When I looked up, my reflection was a stranger, hollow-eyed, pale, broken. My phone buzzed. A text from Theodore, working late again tonight. Love you, darling. Another buzz. Isadora, coffee tomorrow? I have exciting news to share. The casual cruelty of their lies hit me like a physical blow. How long had they been planning this? How many times had they laughed about foolish, trusting Ophelia while they plotted behind my back? I called Marcus with trembling fingers. There's more, he said quietly. They've been meeting for months. Started right after New Year's. And Miss Blackwood, there are recordings. Recordings? Audio from their hotel room. They discuss your trust fund. Your fiancé mentioned that marrying you was the fastest way to financial security. Your sister called you naive but useful. The words hit like bullets. My chest collapsed inward, ribs crushing my heart into powder. Naive but useful. The girl who'd braided my hair and dried my tears thought I was just a piggy bank with legs. Theodore, who whispered poetry in my ear and traced my scars with gentle fingers, saw me as a business transaction. I slid down the bathroom wall onto cold tile, clutching my phone like a lifeline to sanity. Everything I'd believed about love, family, trust, all of it was performance art. A carefully orchestrated play where I was both the audience and the fool. The sister who'd sworn she'd never hurt me had stolen the man I loved. The man who'd promised to cherish me forever was counting down days until my birthday payday. My 25th birthday. 1 month away. When I'd inherit $2 million that would solve all of Theodore's family business problems and fund Isadora's European art school dreams. They weren't just stealing my heart. They were stealing my future, my security, my ability to ever trust another human soul. I sat on that bathroom floor and screamed until my throat burned raw. But that scream was the last sound of weakness they'd ever hear from me. For 3 weeks, I became a master of deception. Every morning, I'd wake up and the truth would hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Theodore. Isadora. The ring. The lies. The plans they'd made with my money, my future, my life. I'd lie in bed and stare at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster until my eyes burned. Sometimes I'd cry so hard I'd vomit. Other times, I felt nothing at all, just a hollow ache where my heart used to be. But then I'd hear Theodore's key in the lock, and I'd become someone else entirely. Good morning, beautiful, he'd say, kissing my forehead like he always did. Morning, I'd reply, my voice steady as stone. Coffee's ready. He never noticed that my hands shook when I poured his cup. Never saw how I flinched when he touched me. Never questioned why I'd suddenly stopped talking about wedding plans or why I'd started wearing long sleeves to hide the scratches I'd clawed into my arms during sleepless nights. The gallery became my refuge and my prison. I'd unlock the doors each morning and pretend to work, but mostly I'd sit in the back office staring at my paintings, all those abstract pieces about love and trust that now felt like cruel jokes. Customers would ask about commissions, about upcoming shows. I'd smile and nod and give them business cards, then lock myself in the bathroom and sob until my mascara ran in black rivers down my cheeks. You seem tired lately, my assistant Emma mentioned. Everything okay? Just wedding stress, I lied. You know how it is. She bought it. Everyone bought it. Because who suspects that someone's entire life is imploding when they're still going through the motions of normalcy? Lunch dates with friends became torture sessions. They'd gush about Theodore, about how lucky I was, about what a perfect couple we made. I'd sit there nodding and smiling while my insides turned to ash. "You're glowing," my college roommate said over salad. "Love looks good on you." I excused myself to throw up in the restaurant bathroom. The worst part was Isadora's calls. She'd phone every few days, her voice bright with fake concern. "You've been so quiet lately. Are you okay?" "Fine," I'd croak. "Just busy with gallery stuff. We should get coffee soon. I miss talking to you." Miss talking to me. While she was wearing my engagement ring and planning her future with my fiancé. The rage would come in waves, hot, consuming fury that made me want to scream, to break things, to drive to her apartment and tear her lying face off. But then the despair would crash back in, leaving me hollow and shaking. I stopped eating. Food tasted like cardboard. I lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks, and Theodore actually complimented me on it. "You look amazing, darling. Have you been working out?" Working out. I was wasting away from heartbreak, and he thought it was an improvement. Nights were the worst. Theodore would reach for me in bed, and I'd have to pretend I was asleep. The thought of his hands on me, hands that had touched Isadora's skin, made my stomach revolt. I'd lie there listening to him breathe, wondering how someone could sleep so peacefully while living such a massive lie. But somewhere in that darkness, something else began to grow. Something cold and patient and calculating. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was furious. At them, at myself, at the naive girl who'd trusted so completely that she'd walked blindfolded off a cliff. They thought they were so clever. Thought I was too stupid, too trusting, too weak to ever figure it out. They had no idea that quiet little Ophelia had inherited more than just money from our grandfather. I'd inherited his mind for strategy. His patience. His talent for playing the long game. They wanted to destroy me? Fine. But I wasn't going to just lie down and die. I was going to show them what happened when you tried to steal from a Blackwood. The transformation happened on a Wednesday night, alone in my apartment at 3 a.m. I was sitting on my kitchen floor, surrounded by the private investigator's photos, when something inside me shifted. The crying stopped. The shaking stopped. Even my heartbeat seemed to slow to a steady, methodical rhythm. I picked up a photo of Theodore kissing Isadora outside her building and felt nothing. No pain. No rage. Just cold calculation. They thought I was broken. They thought I was stupid. They thought quiet little Ophelia would just accept their betrayal and hand over her trust fund with a smile. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I pulled out my laptop and started making lists. Theodore's weaknesses, his family's failing business, his desperate need for social status, his fear of financial ruin. His company needed a major investor within 6 months or they'd lose everything. Isadora's vulnerabilities, her secret applications to European art schools, her dependency on our parents' approval, her desperate need to be seen as the good daughter. She'd applied to 3 prestigious programs that cost more than she could ever afford on her retail salary. My advantages, $2 million coming in 5 weeks, connections in the art world they didn't know about, and most importantly, they had no idea I knew. The plan formed slowly, like a photograph developing in darkness. I would give them exactly what they wanted. I'd play the naive, trusting fiancé and loving sister right up until my birthday party. I'd let them think their scheme was working perfectly. But while they were busy congratulating themselves on their cleverness, I'd be building something else. Something that would destroy them both so completely, they'd spend years wondering how they never saw it coming. The next morning, I called Marcus Rivera back. "I need you to document everything," I told him. "Every meeting, every lie, every stolen moment. I want timestamps, locations, audio when possible. Money is no object. What are you planning, Miss Blackwood? Justice. I started phase 1 immediately, becoming the perfect victim. When Theodore came home that evening, I greeted him with a smile and his favorite dinner. When he lied about working late, I kissed his cheek and said I understood. When he canceled our weekend plans for another business trip, I told him how proud I was of his dedication. You're amazing, he said, pulling me close. So understanding. So trusting. Trusting. The word tasted like poison, but I swallowed it with a smile. I did the same with Isadora. When she called to gush about some mysterious guy she was seeing, I played the supportive sister perfectly. I'm so happy for you, I lied. You deserve someone wonderful. Oh, he is, she sighed. He's everything I've ever wanted. Smart, handsome, successful. And he treats me like a princess. Like a princess. With my ring on her finger and my fiancé in her bed. While I played my role, I was also building my real life. I started networking with art collectors I'd never approached before. I submitted pieces to galleries in London, Paris, Tokyo. I cultivated relationships with people who could open doors Theodore and Isadora never even knew existed. I also started documenting their behavior. Hidden cameras in my apartment captured Theodore's lies. Voice recorders in my purse caught Isadora's fake concern. I created a digital trail of their deception that would make perfect evidence when the time came. But most importantly, I started planning my birthday party. The guest list. The venue. The moment when I'd reveal everything to everyone who mattered. They wanted to use my special day to finalize their betrayal? Perfect. I'd use it to destroy them. Every night, I'd lie in bed next to Theodore and imagine the look on his face when he realized he'd been played. The moment Isadora understood that her loving sister had become her worst nightmare. They thought they were writing my ending. But they had no idea I was writing theirs. The best revenge isn't hot, it's ice cold and perfectly planned. And I had 5 weeks to make it flawless. The power shift started with Alexander Westbrook's business card. I was at a gallery opening in Soho when he approached me. Tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, Theodore's biggest business rival and the one man who could either save or destroy the Hayes family company. Your work is extraordinary, he said, studying my painting of fractured glass and bleeding roses. There's something raw about it. Honest. Most artists hide their pain, but you display it like armor. Pain has a way of clarifying things, I replied, surprised by my own boldness. Indeed it does. Would you have dinner with me? I have a proposition. 3 days later, I was sitting across from Alexander at Le Bernardin, the same restaurant where Theodore had taken Isadora. The irony was delicious. I'd like to represent your work internationally, Alexander said over wine. London, Paris, Tokyo. You have the talent to be a global name. But I could see something else in his eyes. Interest that went beyond business. There's one condition, I said carefully. Complete discretion. My current situation is complicated. He smiled knowingly. Ah. The failing Hayes boy. I heard about the engagement. Unfortunate choice, if you don't mind my saying. Why unfortunate? Theodore's company is hemorrhaging money. They need a major investor within months or they'll lose everything. I imagine your upcoming inheritance is quite convenient timing. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. How did you know about my inheritance? Theodore's been shopping around for investors. Using your trust fund as collateral for future deals. Rather presumptuous, considering you're not married yet. My hands clenched under the table. He was already spending my money before he'd even successfully stolen it. What if I told you I might be interested in other opportunities? I asked. Alexander's eyes sharpened. I'd say that sounds like excellent timing. The Hayes family has been riding on old money and arrogance for too long. fresh blood might be exactly what the business world needs. That night, I came home to find Theodore pacing our living room. "Where were you?" he demanded. I called the gallery. "Emma said you left early." "Business dinner," I said simply. "Why?" "Business dinner with whom?" The jealousy in his voice was rich, considering. "Does it matter? You trust me, don't you?" He caught himself, forced a smile. "Of course I trust you. I just missed you." Liar. But watching him squirm felt like the first real meal I'd eaten in weeks. The next day, Isadora called in tears. "I think I'm making a mistake," she sobbed. "This guy I'm seeing. I think he might be using me." "What makes you say that?" I asked, genuinely curious about her sudden clarity. "He keeps asking about money. About family finances. And he's been distant lately, like his mind is somewhere else." Somewhere else. Like calculating inheritance timelines and planning his next move. "Maybe you should trust your instincts," I suggested gently. "If something feels wrong, it probably is. But I love him, Ophelia. I can't lose him. Love him." My sister loved the man who was using us both like pawns in his financial chess game. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Sometimes the people we love hurt us the most," I said. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" That weekend, photos of Alexander and me appeared in the society pages. Rising art star Ophelia Blackwood dines with business mogul Alexander Westbrook. We looked sophisticated, powerful, dangerous. Theodore's reaction was immediate and violent. "What the hell is this?" he shouted, throwing the newspaper at me. "You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing us." "I'm building my career," I said calmly. "Isn't that what you want? For me to be successful?" "Not with him." "Do you know what people are saying?" "What people, Theodore?" "Your friends? Your family? The same people who'll benefit from my trust fund money?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. Theodore went very still. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I'm just tired of being treated like your accessory instead of your partner." But the seed was planted. The doubt, the fear that maybe I wasn't as naive as he'd thought. I could see it in his eyes, the first crack in his confidence. And for the first time in months, I smiled a real smile. The hunter was becoming the hunted. My 25th birthday party was held at the Metropolitan Museum's rooftop garden. 200 guests. Crystal chandeliers. A view of Manhattan that cost more than most people's cars. Theodore arrived in his best tuxedo, playing the devoted fiancé. Isadora wore emerald green, grandmother's ring catching the light on her finger like a beacon of betrayal. "Happy birthday, beautiful," Theodore whispered, kissing my cheek. "Tonight's the night we've been waiting for." "Yes," I smiled. "It certainly is." The trust fund documents had been signed that morning. $2 million, officially mine. I waited until dessert to make my speech. "Thank you all for celebrating with me tonight," I began, champagne glass raised. 25 years old. Finally an adult, my grandfather would say. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. "I wanted to share something special with you. A story about love, trust, and family." Theodore's smile faltered slightly. Isadora looked confused. "You see, I recently discovered what true devotion looks like. What it means when someone loves you so much, they'll risk everything to be with you." I gestured toward the large screen behind me. Marcus Rivera stepped out from the shadows, remote in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you, True Love." The video began. Theodore and Isadora kissing in Central Park. Holding hands outside the hotel. Her wearing my engagement ring at brunch with friends. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Someone dropped a glass. "Stop this," Theodore hissed, stepping toward me. Oh, but we're just getting started, I said sweetly. Turn up the volume, Marcus. Audio filled the air. Theodore's voice, clear as crystal, marrying her is the fastest way to financial security. $2 million solves everything. Isadora's laugh followed. She's so naive. Always has been. But useful. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. My parents' faces went white. Theodore's mother covered her mouth in horror. You see, I continued, my voice carrying over the chaos, my dear fiancé and beloved sister have been planning quite the future together. With my money, of course. Theodore lunged forward. You manipulative. Manipulative? I laughed, stepping back. That's rich, coming from you. Isadora was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Ophelia, please, it's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. I pulled off my fake engagement ring, a replica I'd had made weeks ago, and threw it at her feet. You can keep the real one. It suits you. The trust fund, Theodore started desperately. Already spent, I announced. On my new gallery in Paris. Alexander Westbrook is my business partner. And my fiancé. Alexander stepped forward, taking my hand. The diamond on my finger was twice the size of grandmother's emerald. We leave for Europe next week, I said. Don't worry about the wedding deposits. Consider them my goodbye gift. Theodore's face crumpled. Ophelia, wait. Wait. I turned back to him, eyes blazing. Like I waited for you to come home from your business meetings? Like I waited for my sister to tell me the truth? We can explain. No need. I smiled serenely. Your explanation is playing on loop for all our friends to see. Isadora collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Theodore stood frozen, watching his entire world crumble in real time. Oh, and Theodore? I called out as Alexander and I headed for the exit. Your family's company? Alexander just bought their biggest competitor. I believe the term is hostile takeover. The last thing I heard was Isadora screaming my name. But I was already gone, walking toward my new life with my head held high. Some people call it revenge. I call it justice. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours, the video had spread through Manhattan's social circles like wildfire. Theodore's family cut him off completely, not just financially, but socially. The Hayes name, built on generations of respectability, was now synonymous with gold digging and betrayal. His mother called me personally to apologize. I raised him better than this, she sobbed. I'm so ashamed. Theodore's business collapsed within the week. Alexander's acquisition of their main competitor left them with nothing but debt and scandal. I heard through friends that Theodore was working as a junior associate at a firm in Queens, making a fraction of his former salary. He called me 17 times. I never answered. Isadora's fall was quieter but equally devastating. Her applications to European art schools were mysteriously withdrawn after admissions committees received additional information about her character. She moved back in with our parents, taking a job at the mall boutique where we used to shop together as teenagers. Our mother tried to mediate. She's your sister, Ophelia. Family forgives. Family doesn't steal from family, I replied simply. She made her choice. The hardest part wasn't their destruction. It was watching my parents grieve the daughter they thought they knew. Isadora had always been their golden child, sweet, innocent, loving. Discovering her capacity for calculated betrayal shattered something in them. But I felt lighter. For months, I'd carried the weight of their deception like poison in my veins. Now, watching them face the consequences of their actions, I felt something I hadn't experienced since that first horrible night, peace. I thought betrayal had broken me into pieces too small to ever reassemble. Instead, it had rebuilt me into someone stronger. Someone who couldn't be fooled again. Someone who understood that trust was a privilege, not a right. My new life in Paris exceeded every dream I'd ever had. Alexander and I married in a small ceremony overlooking the Seine, no family drama, no lies, just truth and genuine affection built on mutual respect rather than desperate need. My gallery on the left bank became the talk of the art world. The paintings I'd created during my darkest hours, those raw, honest pieces about betrayal and resilience, resonated with collectors globally. Critics called them unflinchingly beautiful and emotionally revolutionary. Pain transformed into power, one review read. Blackwood doesn't just display her wounds, she makes them weapons. I liked that description. Alexander never asked about my trust fund or made financial demands. He had his own fortune, his own empire. What he wanted was partnership, not exploitation. The difference was intoxicating. Some nights, I'd stand on our apartment balcony and wonder if I'd become too hard. Too calculating. If revenge had turned me into the kind of person who could destroy family without flinching. But then I'd remember Isadora's voice on that hotel recording, she's so naive. Always has been. But useful. Useful. Not loved. Not cherished. Useful. They'd made their choice when they decided I was worth more as a victim than as a person. I'd simply responded in kind. The old Ophelia would have forgiven them by now. Would have called, apologized for embarrassing them, maybe even offered financial help. The new Ophelia understood that some betrayals are unforgivable. That loving yourself sometimes means letting others face the consequences of their actions without rushing to cushion the fall. I wasn't cruel. I was just finally, completely free. And freedom, I discovered, was the best revenge of all. I'm standing in my Paris gallery, watching couples stroll hand in hand past the windows, when the memory hits me. That night. The doorway. Theodore's hands in Isadora's hair. My engagement ring glittering on her finger like a stolen star. The wine glass shattering against marble. Red liquid spreading like blood across white stone. But this time, the memory doesn't make me shake. This time, I smile. Because I understand now what I couldn't see then, that moment wasn't my ending. It was my beginning. The girl who stood frozen in that doorway was afraid to lose what she thought was love. She didn't know yet that what she was witnessing wasn't the theft of her happiness, it was the gift of her freedom. Theodore and Isadora thought they were writing my destruction. Instead, they wrote my liberation. I touched the wedding ring on my finger, Alexander's grandmother's sapphire, chosen for me, not stolen from me. I think about the paintings hanging around us, born from pain but transformed into power. I think about the life I built from the ashes of their betrayal. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing that could have happened to you. They taught me that family can be your greatest enemy. That love without respect is just manipulation with better marketing. But they also taught me that I was stronger than I ever imagined. That quiet little Ophelia had claws when she needed them. My phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. Can we talk? Isadora. I delete it without reading it twice. Some doors, once closed, should stay that way. After all, I have a new life to live. And unlike the old one, this one belongs entirely to me. The girl in the doorway thought betrayal was the end of her story. The woman in Paris knows it was just the beginning of a much better one.